Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to the A24 project here on the Nerd Party Network. We make our way through the A24 filmography and along the way bring you interviews with the talent involved in front of and behind the camera. I'm Lee Hutchison and joining me as ever is Dallas King. Dallas, we're back after a small break.
A small but well-deserved break, I think. Summer holiday, perhaps, one might say. A late summer holiday.
Yeah, we've definitely got a busy spell after kind of waiting around for quite a while. We can finally talk about Aftersun. We'll be able to talk about Marcel the Shell with shoes on shortly, Pearl, the Whale, much more. It's going to be an exciting kind of end to the year, I think.
Oh, absolutely. We're finally syncing up again after the various film festivals that we've been at. So, certainly the Whale I'm very excited to talk about. And today's one, of course.
Yeah, this is one I've been looking forward to talking about for a long time. And it's not enough to just have both of us today. We're joined by returning guest, filmmaker, critic, and the podcaster from the Annapurnaverse, Billie Melissa. Welcome back.
Hi, I'm glad to be back. I'm so excited. I love it here. I love talking about Come On. You guys just basically enable me to just ramble about things that I really love, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this ramble today. And today we're going to be diving into Aftersun, which was released just last week in America and will land in mid-November in the UK through Mubi. And for those unfamiliar with Aftersun, Sophie reflects on the shared joy and private melancholy of a holiday to Turkey she took with her father 20 years earlier. Memories real and imagined fill the gaps between mini-DV footage as she tries to reconcile the father she knew with the man she didn't. So Dallas, I want to start with you on this one about your sort of expectations and initial reaction, as we were quite lucky as we got to watch this one as the opening film of the Edinburgh Film Festival, which felt really kind of fitting, as this is a story about a sort of a young Edinburgh family that we're going to follow through this film. Obviously, I think it's hard not to talk a little bit more about sort of the Edinburgh Film Festival as a sort of wider thing, but kind of what was your expectations going in and an initial reaction? And I guess something, if you want to say something about the film festival itself too.
Yeah, well, I think we'll probably end up doing a full episode on the Filibuster podcast about the current state of Filmhouse, the Belmont, and the Edinburgh International Film Festival. But of course, if anyone's unaware, all three sadly fell into administration in the last month. And so Aftersun was the opening film of this year's Edinburgh International Film Festival, and potentially the last Edinburgh International Film Festival. I mean, I was looking back at my review, and it says, Charlotte Wells' Aftersun proves to be the soothing balm needed for the Edinburgh International Film Festival after a couple of years itching to return to its full glory after the pandemic. I mean, I didn't know much about Aftersun probably until Cannes, really, when it debuted there to strangely universal praise. This year's Cannes seemed to be a very odd festival in that there wasn't really much consensus over what was good and what wasn't. For every 5-star rave, there was someone saying it was like the worst film they'd ever seen. So the fact that Aftersun was getting universal praise was a great thing. And then, of course, it also got picked up by A24, which then, of course, immediately suddenly put it on my radar. But I think I would have still watched Aftersun if I was at Cannes because of the sort of Scottish connection there. And I mean, I think we were all expecting it to be the opening film for the Edinburgh International Film Festival. I think it seemed like the logical choice, although I do know that there was several films that Edinburgh wanted, but I think Mubi were saving several for them for the London Film Festival, so they basically had to make do with, they put all their eggs in one basket, and I have to say, it did pay off. I think it was a fantastic choice for launching the festival. And yeah, I mean, I'm not from Edinburgh myself, but certainly Paul Mescal seemed to do very well from the Edinburgh crowd in terms of his accent and stuff like that. And yeah, no, I was blown away by it in the end. I'll talk about it a bit later, but yeah, it was really interesting to see. I love it when a film does this, and where a very, very good film becomes like a 5-star film for me, with one particular scene where it ties it all together. But I'm sure we'll get onto that.
So what about for you, Billy? You saw this also as part of a film festival in New York. What was your reaction? And I'm curious, how did it play with a very American audience?
So yeah, like Dallas, I hadn't heard much about it, and then everyone was coming out of Cannes saying it was like the best thing that they'd seen. And I think no, it didn't. Did it play Venice? Am I making that up?
No, it didn't play Venice.
No, yeah. So I don't know. I must have just continuously heard about it throughout the
It
year,
might have
and
been
like
at Toronto, which you were at as well.
yes, yeah. I did it play Toronto, and then I missed it because it was playing New York. Either way, it was just one of those ones where I was like, yep, yeah, I'll go see that. And then it ended up being the first thing I saw at New York Film Festival, and I was like, oh, I didn't know what I was expecting, because I didn't know anything about it. I hadn't read anything about it, and I was just like completely kind of swept up in it, and the amount of things that I was just noting down, like, I've never seen this on screen before. I've never seen this kind of like British holiday representation. It's like really, really beautiful. But it landed with American audiences just as much. Everyone was coming out, and actually I met a friend on the way out, and they said to me, "Oh, did you just see Aftersun?" I said, "Yeah," and they were like, "Why aren't you crying?" And I was like, "I was like 10 minutes ago. I'm fine now." But yeah, they were still like so almost like as moved, probably even more so than I was. I think it's really hit a home run in every place it's played.
It's a very kind of simple premise of a film. A father takes his young daughter abroad for a weekend of sort of all-inclusive bliss. What did you make of this really very personal kind of story, Dallas? Like, we'll talk more about her later on, Charlotte Wells, but it's hard not to escape the feeling that this is an incredibly personal film. I think I perhaps didn't realize that as much at the time. I think sometimes the joy of film festivals is you get to see these things in a bit of a bubble, but I think we probably all saw that tweet that I think A24 put out last week, where it was the picture of Charlotte and her dad juxtaposed next to sort of Paul and Frankie, sort of as in the sort of, matching kind of roles. What did you kind of think of this very kind of personal but almost quite simple premise about, kind of looking back on those holidays, and was it perhaps all it was meant to be, and was it that special trip that someone maybe hopes it would be?
I mean, for US audiences, I think watching this, it will be a slightly different experience, because for anyone who's grown up with British TV in particular, when British TV shows either do a movie adaptation or go into whatever series it is, when it's slightly past its sell by date, the plot normally be, let's send them on holiday, and then they end up on some foreign country and hijinks ensue. Or you've got something like, the only other sort of film that immediately springs to mind when talking about sort of package holiday sort of thing is the In-Betweeners movie, which actually was on, I think I caught on on the end of on the TV the other day. But this is something, incredibly personal. I mean, she's tried to make it clear that it's not 100%, it's not an autobiography, but it is inspired by elements from her life. But I think it really connects with everyone, because there's a phrase, and I can't remember where I first heard it, but I think it was about a film, and it's basically, there's a universality in the specific. The more specific you make a story, the more it seems to resonate with everyone. I think this was actually probably to do with 8th grade, actually, because in that, Kayla's got a very specific sort of story within her life and her experience of a high school. But everyone's been to school, and everyone can draw their own parallels with what she's going through, with what they went through at the time. And so a lot of people who have grown up in the UK have been on that package holiday, and there's so many things which you go, oh, I recognize that, whether it's discovering the exoticness of a Fanta Limon, or watching the really bad entertainment from the tour reps, or particularly towards the end of a holiday, when everyone, it's where everyone is really getting on each other's nerves, and you kind of are just waiting for the holiday to be over, even though it's about 2 days, that you've still got 2 days left. I think like the scene, which I think probably affected quite a lot of people as well, apart from the sort of the final scene, was when the dad doesn't want to go up and sing karaoke with his daughter, and it's just like, oh, that's just he leaves her sort of flying solo on that, and that was incredibly harsh. But there's so many elements that I think everyone is experiencing, and they can put themselves in that story, and what it then does is allow you to think about your own probably sort of family relationships and how you've been either on holiday and how you. I think what it does really well is asks the question of how well you know your parents as people. I think we all know them as our mum and dad, but how well do we know them outside of that? I think for the longest time, they are your mum and dad, and you never really sort of think about what they've got going on outside of their role as a parent. And I think that's what this does really well. And it all sort of comes together beautifully at the end.
Yeah, I love that saying, and all my favorite films do it. They just make something so very specific, and yet you find something within there that resonates in your own life. And I think it is those like really specific things about, because I was actually describing it in a class for my MA. We were watching some kind of snippet of a documentary, and the way that they had like basically the person had captured their childhood home after they'd left and come back. And I was like, I just saw Aftersun at the New York Film Festival, and it does the exact same thing of like, you can tell that she's shooting from memory, and like there's the really beautiful like framing of, for me specifically, it was like having her hair braided with like the color thread. I was like, oh my gosh, I have never, ever, ever seen anyone put that in a film. But yeah, I did that every single year I went on holiday. And like, it seems like such a small, minute detail. It must have been on screen for like 2 seconds. But I was like, oh my gosh, like it's just so incredible. There's like things that she has peeled from her own memory that we can then relate onto from our own experiences. And I love filmmakers who really kind of attack that mentality and just absolutely nail it. Like there's exactly what Dallas was saying about like the bad holiday singers and like the variety shows, and like I don't know, it's just all these things that I wish that I had like seen on screen for years but have only just come to the surface.
So the two people that kind of take the lead in this film are Paul Mescal and Frankie Corio. So we'll kind of hear a bit from them at the end. We were lucky enough to chat with them at the opening night of the Edinburgh Film Festival. But I want to kind of talk about the man of the moment, kind of first, Paul Mescal. He seems to be sort of gunning for kind of that Robert Pattinson as the new movie indie darling. You know, he plays Callum, a very young single father in this film, dealing with very difficult emotions under the surface as he aims to give his daughter that lovely package holiday. Dallas, what did you make of this role of Callum, and what did you think of Paul Mescal? Because I'll be honest, this was my real first introduction to him beyond sort of normal people, but he certainly seems to be someone that we'll be discussing more of in kind of future episodes of the podcast. But what did you make of this role and his performance?
I have not even seen Normal People. I know it's probably a terrible thing to say, but I never got around to it. So I'd heard a lot of hype about him. I'd seen a lot of thirst on the internet for him. But this was the first thing I'd seen him in, and actually my first experience of him was actually speaking with him on the red carpet, and he was a very, very nice man. So I was instantly charmed by him, and so went into the film, and it was an incredibly raw, vulnerable performance, I thought. This is a man who is, separated from his partner and doesn't see his daughter often, so he's trying to do something nice, but it's clear that the separation has, been going on for a while. So even though they're together, he's not entirely sure what to do all the time, and I'm someone who is not very good at sort of public interactions. Once I know someone very well, it's fine, but sort of meeting new people and stuff, I can sometimes go back into myself, and I can sort of see a lot of that in him, and how he's just really unsure of how to act and how to behave. And I mean, it's clear that he adores his daughter, but he just isn't really sure how to say it or express it. And we're at a time where people get a lot of abuse for showing their emotions, or for men to be able to illustrate their feelings and stuff like that. But I think it's an incredibly raw, vulnerable performance, and yeah, he's a fantastic actor, and he's going to do huge things in the future. I know he's got another film. It's Gospel Equals is coming out later this year with A24 as well, so he's already up to 2. So he's a half Pattinson already in terms of A24's most prolific actors. So, but I think, yeah, I saw an interview with him today where he's very aware of the films that he is looking to choose to be in. He's aware of the shrinking sort of opportunities and audience for this type of film, but he wants to make sure that he's working with new directors and directors who want to tell personal stories. He's not going to be, obviously, everyone's got to do the odd action thriller or spy movie, you said, or heaven forbid, sign up to a MCU or DCEU franchise. But I think he's definitely going to be someone who excels when he works with the sort of smaller independent art house side of things.
What did you make of him, Billy? Was this your first experience of him, or have you been kind of following his career these past few years?
I'd seen Normal People, so that was kind of my first experience of him, and I'm not sure that I've seen him in anything else. If I have, it doesn't spring to mind. But there's something that like the actors that I love the most do, and it's when they're doing more internally than they're doing externally. And I can see in every time he's on screen that he is going through something in his mind that he's not verbalizing, which makes the dynamic between him and his daughter so interesting, because it's like that childhood, I don't want to say naivety, because I don't even feel like it is. It's just like that childhood magic of everything is like new and you're discovering it, and yet he has lived life much longer than she has. And there's that question when she's like interviewing him on the camera, and she's like, what did you think you'd be doing like when you were my age, like what did you think you were gonna be? And then like that's just like the instant cut off point for him, and it's kind of like you can see that that's what he's been thinking about the entire film. And I just think I love when directors kind of give their actors enough to play with, and you can tell that Paul was given like plenty to play with this role, regardless of the fact that it's not like a overtly like he's not screaming or shouting or like doing all of these things that people then go, oh, it's the best actor, like he deserves best actor. It's obviously going to be one of those conversations where he's completely left out of the ballot, because also the best actor race this year is stacked, but he's worthy of being in the conversation despite the fact that he probably won't be. I think he's fantastic, and I can't wait to see the choices that he makes next. Even if he does end up in a big franchise film, I'm sure he'll take his experience with Charlotte Wells and carry that through to his next performances.
I think one thing we were really lucky to see, Dallas, was that sort of red carpet experience between sort of Paul and Frankie. Do you want to talk a little bit about that and sort of how that sort of seemed to translate?
Yeah, no, 'cause when we were there for quite a while. They were late in arriving, and I was able to see Charlotte and Frankie. So they came in first. Paul was still outside, obviously speaking to lots of Normal People fans and the press and stuff like that. And there's this group of sort of about 4 OAPs who always attend these events, looking to get sort of photos and autographs with everyone. And they asked Frankie for her autograph, and she seemed a little bit shocked that she was like, you want my autograph? And it's like, well, yes, you're the star of the movie. And, this was clearly the first red carpet that she'd done. And she was very, very nervous. And, but it was great to see how Paul was with her. He was still clearly adopting the father role. So, he was making sure that she sort of got brought into the photos and stuff like that. And he was very much making sure that, she was part of the interviews and stuff like that. Because there was an awkward moment when one particular person only wanted Paul Mescal to be interviewed, but we were like, no, we want both of them. And you know, it was a huge moment for her and her parents as well, who are in the movie. I believe Frankie's dad is the one that is picking up the kid at the side of the pool and basically saying, "You're ruining it for everyone," which is that got a huge laugh, as clearly a lot of people have been through that with kids on their holidays. So it was just great to see their relationship, and so they talk about it in the interview that we'll play at the end, about how they spent time together to sort of build that relationship beforehand. It was like sort of either watching sort of football games or sort of just hanging out and stuff so that they had a natural relationship before it got on to the screen. But I mean, I think we'll talk about Frankie in a second, but going back to Paul, I think he also has a very difficult job in this, in that he's playing someone who's going through something as well, but also he's playing someone who is a version of themselves. He's playing essentially the version that Sophie is remembering from her childhood. So it's a very difficult thing to play, because you know she's remembering she's got bits that are from videos or photos and stuff like that, but you know she's having to sort of, I guess, read into every single, you know, thing that he says or look that he makes and stuff like that. So it's an incredibly difficult performance to play, and I think that's why it is so good, because you know we've all got, I mean, we all have that with holidays and stuff like that, especially older holidays, when you know you would take your photos, but then you would have to go to an actual shop and wait a week to have them developed, and then find out that half of them are out of focus, and stuff like that. And then that is what it is for her. She's trying to bring back into focus this one particular moment in time. And yeah, I think that because you have the older version of her in a few scenes as well, where she's, and it's also the reason why she does that, which we'll get onto as well. But I think the relationship between the two of them is fantastic, and yeah, Frankie is a real find as well, and I think she's going to be a huge star in her own right.
What did you think of Frankie's performance, Billy? Like, I found it hard to believe this was her first time in a film. She was incredible. What did you make of her?
Yeah, exactly that. And I would hand her the Best Supporting Actress Oscar gladly, because I think she's incredible. She's the star of the film. She is. Exactly what you said. I can't believe it's her first time on screen. She looks like she's been doing it for years, and she's so professional and understands her incredibly complex role that she's playing. And I just think she's magic, and I can't wait to see what she gets up to next. I think that, like, and also like that confidence that radiates from her throughout the film, like she doesn't seem nervous or shy, which is why, like, when Dallas said that she was nervous on the red carpet, I was like, there's no way she was so confident on screen, like. And then that just goes to show how she completely understood her role, and she was really, I don't know, that maybe is probably a credit to Charlotte Wells as the director as much as it is to her as a performer. I just think everything that she's doing throughout is just so, I don't know, it reminded me of Tatum O'Neal in Paper Moon. I just think she could be as wonderful and as brilliant and is as worthy as praise as every other Best Supporting Actress this year. Well, I guess she would be a lead, wouldn't she? Really?
Well, yeah, she'd be a lead, but yes, given the Oscars, you
can given the circumstances, yeah.
Yes, they would totally slot her into supporting as to increase her chances.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's always that kind of
the politics
game playing from the politics of it. But she has been longlisted for Best Newcomer Actor or Actress in the BIFA, the British Independent Film Awards. So, and Aftersun has been longlisted for, I think, Best New Filmmaker and Best Debut Film and stuff like that. So certainly from the British side, I think it's going to do very well. But it's great to see that American audiences and American critics are. I think it's the highest rated one at the moment in terms of awards. I think I saw on Next Best Picture we're saying that it's basically got the highest overall ranking from all the critics and stuff like that. So will it break into the Oscar race? Who knows? It'd be great if it did, but yeah, we'll have to see.
A24 and their reputation of managing to actually turn it on for Oscar nominations would have to definitely take a turn, I think.
Well, I think they might be busy with Best Actor for Brendan Fraser and all the Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think Aftersun might struggle to get a lot of their the pot of money to push them. But I mean, certainly maybe like a best original screenplay sort of thing, I think is potentially where it might score well.
That's what I was hoping for, and I was kind of equally hoping for them to push a little bit for Brian Tyree Henry in Causeway. I really just think he's the best supporting actor of this
We'll
year.
have to get you back for that one because did you
trust
catch that
me.
one, Lee? I haven't seen that one yet.
No, I didn't catch it. I will catch it on Apple TV on November 4th. I believe that one comes out. So yeah, I think I'm way abroad when that one comes out, but I'm definitely looking forward to catching that one. But you know, we've spoken a lot about her, but Charlotte Wells, this is her also first time as a writer director of a feature. Again, Edinburgh represented behind the camera with this one. Billie, what did you make of Charlotte Wells' sort of debut and sort of a lot of the creative choices that she's made here? That this isn't a conventional sort of back and forth through kind of time. You know, she takes a lot of unique approaches. What did you make of the way that she's kind of gone around this film?
I think it's interesting when you're a first-time director because you've equally got nothing to kind of live up to, and also incredibly terrified that this is your first thing and that if you put it out into the world and it's bad, maybe you won't get the funding. Are you speaking
from your own experience as a first-time director?
yeah. I mean, truly, like it's really an overwhelming thing to step into that place and kind of feel like the first thing. And I think especially in a world that's kind of as unforgiving as ours sometimes is like the first thing has to be brilliant or that's it. Like don't even try again. But I think that there's like clearly a freedom that she has within her work and within the way that she's made this film is that she's really just completely embraced exactly what she's doing. And she's like, no, I'm going to make this the way I want it to be. And I don't know if that's help from A24 being as kind of with the reputation they have of giving freedom to new directors and young directors, young in the sense of in their career, not necessarily in age, but like I think she's nailed it. I think that I think everyone who sees this film will be excited to see what she has to say next because I just love the freedom that she's got in this film. It doesn't feel like she's scared. It feels like she's taking risks. She's not necessarily following convention in a lot of places. Like some of the choices that she made could have been hit or miss, really. People could have taken it one way or the other, and obviously it's gone in the way of praise, not just specifically talking about the under pressure scene which would be a whole episode in itself, but like I'm excited by her. I can't wait to see what she gets up to next.
What did you make of her, Dallas? Like, you might have a better eye for this, but obviously there is the use of mini-DV footage as well. Would you say that's something that was kind of shot in kind of a mini-DV camera, or is that something that's maybe been done kind of in edit?
No, I think by looking at it with my non-professional, non-expert eye, I think yes, she would have absolutely have just given Frankie. It might have been a struggle to find an old mini-DV camera these days, but I think she probably would have given one to Frankie, and I think probably actually there probably was a level of maybe not improvisation, but sort of this is where the scene's meant to go, and just there was probably some scenes where she just told Frankie just put the camera on Paul and just start talking to him and let's see what comes out of it, and you would have got part of that sort of childlike innocence out of it because Frankie's performance does feel very naturalistic. It doesn't feel like she's acting. It feels just like she's like a girl on holiday, and I think what I really liked about this film, in the fact that it's looking at sort of memory in the past and stuff like that, is it spends the majority of time there. Some directors or some filmmakers, certainly sort of studio style, would have, I'm sure there would have been more pressure to have, well, we should have scenes of her in the present, watching more of her watching the videos, and then it's sort of fading into the past, and then there would have been more sort of cutting back and forth between the timelines. This one basically pretty much allows it to play out within that particular time frame before, and then it sort of comes together all at the end. And the sort of way it sort of keeps coming back to one particular scene, this sort of almost sort of silent disco sort of scene, it's like it keeps coming out, and it sort of allows the audience to question, why are we going to this particular scene? What does it mean? And it's the way that all those little puzzle pieces sort of, so when the last one sort of drops in and you realize what it is actually all about, it's incredibly powerful. And I think, she has a great, clearly is able to draw a great performance out of actors. It must have been, like Billy says, it must have been incredibly daunting, not as only as a first-time filmmaker, but to tell a story which is clearly so incredibly personal. They always say, you should write what you know. So I can understand from that perspective, but it is incredibly personal, and knowing that you are going to get asked questions about that and how it relates to her relationship with her own father and stuff like that, it's an incredibly brave thing to do. But I think I'm very excited to see where she goes from here. And I think she'll be a new darling in the British, well, slash American movie scene, given the fact that she's basically lives in Brooklyn now, I believe. And I think she said on the red carpet and introducing the films that she's kind of lost a bit of the Edinburgh tongue, but it would come back the longer that she's in Edinburgh and the more that she celebrated the evening with a few tenants.
So we're going to hear from Charlotte Wells a little bit at the end, but here's a little preview of an upcoming interview we've got with Sally Messham, who you might be familiar with from Our Ladies, who plays Belinda, the travel rep in the film, and she talks about working with Charlotte. It was great to obviously see you recently in Aftersun. And what did you think of sort of Charlotte Wells' script, and how did sort of the role come around for you of Belinda?
Oh yeah, so that was kind of still kind of during, when was that? When did I get the script? Was it kind of just as it was still kind of lockdown? We shot it during lockdown, one of the lockdowns. So yeah, it was during that time, and it just came through my agent. Had a meeting with the casting director on Zoom, because everything was Zoom and still is Zoom. And I remember reading it and kind of just being really kind of impressed with just how touching it was, and kind of contemplative, and it was like a memory piece. And I remember I'd never heard of her. She's such a young up-and-coming filmmaker, and I watched some of her short films and I was just blown away with how intricately shot they were. I've always wanted to shoot on film as well, and I remember asking specifically, because when you just read a script, you're like, this has got to be shot on film, and it was, and I was really excited about the prospect of that. And it reminded me a lot of another A24 film that I love called mid-90s, that kind of nostalgia, that shot on film kind of thing. And I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna, and it was just a real kind of a privilege just to be a small cog in the wheel, really. That
Belinda's this like travel rep, and it's immediately, I think, when we're introduced to her, like we see her on this bus rounding everyone up, like it's like anyone that went on like that 90s family package holiday is like, oh, I know that character. She's real to life. What was it like to sort of take on this role?
It was really fun. It was, again, like something so seeped in nostalgia for me. And it was good to delve into something new. And I remember, I think Charlotte had recommended something to the costume designer that I'd chatted to about this. There was this BBC series on in the 90s called Holiday Reps, and
I remember that well.
Can you remember it?
Yeah.
I watched hours of that, and I was like, oh my god, this is fascinating, and these are real people. Like, and there was this one character in particular, I can't remember her name, but I was just watching her the entire time, and they're such characters, and that lifestyle is so fascinating. So I watch a lot of that.
Yeah. You obviously shot in sort of Turkey for the film. What was it kind of like to kind of make the kind of film out there? What was the industry like there?
Well, it was very tough because at the time Turkey was was on the red list for UK travelers. So it was really strange because it was like the whole place was a film set, because we've shot it in a place called Fethiye in Deniz, which is a very, very touristy part of Turkey on the coast. And because there was no tourists there, it was like being in a theme park with no customers. So it was bizarre. I mean, there was like the odd few expat that kind of were like asking us, what are you shooting and all this. But it was fascinating. It was like we had a playground. We were all staying in one of the hotels that was used as the nicer resort. And yeah, it had its challenges. Working, there was a lot of times we were filming in quite busy areas, lots of because obviously there's a lot of Turkish people still on holiday there. So it was it was kind of like lots of obstacles in the way, but it was really fascinating and great to explore somewhere new.
And what was Charlotte like as a director? How does she work with her actors?
She was just, from my experience of her, she was just really gentle and respectful, and kind of tried to quieten everything else around and just kind of have a little bubble with the actors and kind of really keep that kind of sanctity in place. And yeah, she was just really fascinating to watch. She was the first female director I've ever worked with on film, which was just amazing to see as well. And yeah, she's got such vision. I'm really excited to see what she does next.
And did you sort of enjoy working with like Paul and Frankie? Like when we interviewed them last month, it was amazing to sort of see like Paul has very much got that father-like figure with them with the two of them together. How did you find sort of working alongside them?
Yeah, they were fab. I mean, they built up such a great relationship. I think they had a lot of bonding time before the film actually started. Yeah, Paul's just great. He's so generous again, kind of really easy to work alongside. And Frankie was great as well, kind of just watching the way that he was working with her and kind of, yeah, just watching their relationship kind of bloom basically throughout. Yeah, he was great, and his accent was great as well. I remember
it was. They introduced the film, he was like, "Well, here I am in Edinburgh, like no pressure on this."
It was a really soft. It felt like a really soft Edinburgh accent that he was doing that I've heard before. Yeah.
It was really good. It passed the test here as well. And I couldn't help but like reflect on the two films. Like they both present sort of like working class Scottish characters, like their challenges, like, and equally like kind of like their sadness and relationships or lack thereof. What do you kind of parallels do you sort of see between the two films, and how important is that kind of almost representation of kind of characters?
Oh, I think it's so important to see working class characters, whether that be northern working class characters, Scottish working class characters, just shot in a way that isn't like, just shot in a really beautiful way, like not shot in like a kind of, you're working class, this is a really gritty, raw kind of, in your face kind of cinema. It was just beautiful to see these stories, not romanticized, but kind of just put there in a really beautiful way. I think that's so important for representation. Do you know what I mean? Why do all these like, upper class films have to be totally shot in a gorgeous way? That's why I love The Souvenir as well, because The Souvenir was kind of the antithesis of that. It was kind of like the kind of the grittiness and the dirtiness of those upper class kind of characters and families.
Yeah, and I think it's even going back to like Our Ladies. It's one of those ones you watch and you go, oh, I know those people, I can relate to, that character, or that was my person. That's a person that I knew, that I went to school story. And, it generates those conversations, and, it's not like nostalgia for nostalgia's sake. It's like, oh, those were people I knew, and that's similar to my journey. And, it sparks something, I think.
Definitely. And real rich stories. Yeah.
So the film kind of leans into that sort of 90s experience. And I think, as we've all discussed, I think it's safe to say we've all related to it on one level or another. What do you think this film does well in perhaps avoiding some of those nostalgia kind of pitfalls that a lot of other films kind of tend to do? And what makes this film feel like it's more authentic than something where it's like constantly nudging your friend going, oh, that happened to us, or I can relate to that? What do you feel about sort of the use of the time setting, Billie?
I mean, I was born late 90s, so I'm not entirely sure. But I do think that it's something that another A24 film, crossing over with Annapurna, 20th Century Women, does really well, of like acknowledging the fact that we're in the 70s, but also like the decades that have come before have influenced that current moment. And so I feel like there is a lot of that. And I also like when films don't restrict themselves into the corner of like, this is a period piece. It's so gross to think the 90s being a period piece, but it is now because we're past it. Of like, not everything needs to be signposted. We don't need to be like, here's, I don't know, Tamagotchis, whatever. What were they doing in the 90s? I was like 4 years old.
Yeah, we had Tamagotchis in the 90s.
Yeah, I was
Furbies. Like... No one was playing with a Furby. No one was shouting, what's up, and all that.
They should have thrown a Furby in there, but yeah, no, I do like it. I like that it kind of, and it doesn't alienate an audience by throwing in all those things of like, this is specifically for these people. It really brings it into the present, of even like people who are watching it now. Like, it didn't feel like I was watching like the 90s. It could have been early 2000s or even now, to be honest. And I think that it's not talking down at its audience of like, look, we're going on a nostalgia trip here.
So Dallas, unfortunately, you have been set up here.
Yes.
I think both of us perhaps a little bit more than Billie then related to the 90s experience. We both, maybe more so myself, I definitely rocked out to Chumbawamba. What did you make of how this film sort of represented the 90s and kind of the nostalgia of it all?
I think I agree with Billie, and what I like about it is that it doesn't rely on too many overt references and stuff like that. I hate it when a film sort of throws them in to appeal to its audience at the time, but what it will then end up doing is dating it and then alienating people later on. I mean, I can't remember there being too many like tie-dye T-shirts or anything that people were wearing. Obviously, there's a few sort of musical choices like the Macarena and all that were huge then, but they are still played. I assume they're maybe played in nightclubs. I've been in a nightclub in ages. Well, actually, there's 90s nightclubs now, so they're again, they're kind of retro places now. So everyone still dances to like the Grease Mega Mix and ABBA and stuff like that. So I think that all works fine. And yeah, it's like you can tell that it's but like I say, when I said before that it's like that universality thing, it's like it, because of the way that she structures it and the way that she's filmed it, without this reliance on very specific sort of things that there's nobody at the pool having a discussion about the World Cup that was going on that year or something like that. It allows more people to put themselves into that and remember their holiday whenever it was that they took it. So it feels like a period piece. It feels like something. It allows people to go back to their past, but it doesn't fix them in one specific point, which is what I liked.
The film kind of explores really mental health, across our sort of two characters and across very different decades in time. Billie, how did you sort of feel the film approached this subject?
Yeah, I think it's something that we're seeing more and more in films discussed openly in a way that maybe like in the 90s there wasn't the space to have that kind of conversation, because I feel like with the rise of social media and with people being more open and discussing mental health, we are kind of seeing a new era of film where we are allowed to embrace that in all of its forms. And I think that it's it's a really good version, and I don't want to dunk on any other films, but there are films this year that have done it to the other end of the extreme, where it's like, this is a film about mental health, and here's this and here's that, and I'm sure most people know exactly which film I'm talking about. But with Aftersun, I think it's really, it accepts that it's a part of the everyday, and it accepts that it's not something that necessarily can be healed by just going through life, because I think even like both characters are dealing with it in their own small way. Frankie is kind of discovering it for the first time, or Sophie is discovering it for the first time, and then Paul's character has carried it with him throughout his life. And I think that I like when scripts or directors kind of trust their audiences enough to be like, I don't know, I think it all just goes back to the specifics, and really applying that, and kind of and trusting that your audience is going to get there on their own without shouting it in their faces. Like Silver Linings Playbook kind of does the same thing. It's like everyone in the film is dealing with it in their own way, and I think it has just become a part of every film now. I feel like it's always in there for every character, and I think it is important as a director is also just to have discussions with your actors about your character's mental health. That could be like a new era of directing, because it is something that we are kind of embracing more as a society to discuss in media.
Going back to the sort of the 90s setting and stuff like that, I think that allows it an extra layer of tragedy, I guess, because you look back at that time and it was pretty much, mental health as a sort of phrase didn't really exist back then. People were, I guess, either sort of like depressed or that was it, or even worse, labeled as, manic depressive or psychotic and stuff like that. There wasn't really the discussions that we're having nowadays. And you can see that he is a man who is alone in dealing with this. And, he can't talk to his daughter about it because, he doesn't want to burden her with it, and also she's probably too young to be able to really understand what was going on, and that's why she's looking back on it now. Because, and I think Billy's absolutely right in that one of the strengths of the film is it doesn't, spell everything out to the audiences. It allows them to put together, and you realize, as the film goes on, she's looking back on this film now as an adult with a child of her own, and wondering, is she gonna face a similar mental health crisis as her father? Is it hereditary? Has it been passed down? She's trying to figure all that stuff out by remembering this one specific moment, and it then goes even further than that to the sort of final scene. And I mean, we'll talk about it in what everyone thinks happened. I mean, there was actually a bit of debate with a few people after the premiere as to, some people thought it definitely meant this, some people thought, well, maybe not, but I certainly read it as one particular thing. But I mean, it's all sort of elevated by Paul Mescal's performance, and like Billy said, sort of he does so much by not doing much. It's not what he says; it's how he internalizes everything, and you can see it in his face and his eyes and stuff. Like the scene where he's sort of like on the carpets in that carpet shop, or just like I mean, I could almost sort of feel people tensing up in the audiences. He walks towards the sea along the beach, and you're really sort of worried about what he's going to do to himself, and then you're like thinking, well, he can't do that. His daughter's here and stuff like that. But then you realize that people, this sort of thing happens all the time, and it's an incredibly sort of raw film, and yet it will, then also sort of spark debate amongst people about their own sort of issues, and what they see in the media and society as well, I think so.
So let's kind of maybe talk a little bit about the ending, a bit of a spoiler discussion. So if you've not had the chance to see Aftersun yet, hopefully this has convinced you to check it out when you can get the chance. But for those that haven't enjoyed it, what was your interpretation of the end of the movie? And I feel that probably leans into a little bit of discussion about the music as well. So Billie, I'll kind of go with you first. What was your sort of interpretation of this ending?
I mean, I think I read it as, I don't know, honestly. I don't think I ever gave too much thought beyond assuming that he commits suicide and that she was kind of reconciling with the fact that that was the last time that she saw him. And then after that, kind of all the memories become blurred, because obviously we have that final scene with Under Pressure, and I don't know, I feel like that it's still something that I'm kind of unpacking for myself, and something that I would like to watch the film again at least once, or maybe 3 or 4 times, to really fully understand what she was going for as a director with the nightclub scene. But it kind of seemed like I don't know, it's almost too difficult to articulate. I feel like it's more of a feeling than it is like something that you can put into words, but it definitely seemed like she was trying to kind of understand that specific holiday had obviously, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just so difficult to say exactly what it's doing, but it does seem like it's a memory thing, and it's like after a certain point in the holiday, everything kind of became very hazy, and yeah, it's just that thing of childhood, isn't it? You're always looking back at something and never really fully understanding if your mind is just playing tricks on you or if it's really something that happened.
What was your interpretation, Dallas? I think Billie's is very much in line with what I was feeling. What did you think?
Yeah, no, I think I was the same, and that yeah, you sort of got that moment where she sort of waves bye to him and at the airport, and for me I read that as that was the last time that she saw him, and he probably committed suicide probably not soon after the end of that holiday. And yeah, she's now looking back on that time with her kid, and wondering if, you know, she might be feeling similar thoughts in what that means for her. And yeah, you know, you got the sense that, you know, he was going through a crisis and stuff like that, but then it was sort of drip fed, and then it sort of all came together, and you're sort of like, the pit of your stomach just sort of plummets when you realize that, oh right, that's what happened. I mean, it doesn't, you know, explicitly say that's what happened, but that's, I mean, it's up to interpretation, but that was my reading of it. And yeah, you've got that sort of final night where, you know, they're trying to have, you know, they'd had that argument the night before, and they're trying to have one last, you know, fun night in the holiday before it ends, and he starts dancing to Under Pressure, and I guess that's one of her last memories of him. And knowing that that was the last time one of the last times she saw him on the dance floor, is then, you know, we've got these scenes later, well, sort of interspersed throughout the film, where it's sort of black and white. She's at a club, and she believes she sees her dad. You know, she's potentially haunted by that one particular image of her dad, and that's why she sort of sees him in the club and stuff like that. And as a grown up, knowing now what he was probably going through, and whether it's sort of guilt or anger or something like that, she's unable to, I guess, to move past that one particular moment. And that's what she's trying to do by going back in time to look at this holiday. And yeah, I think it's the one moment that everyone seemed to have been was talking about when coming out of the film, and it's the moment that I sort of mentioned at the start, where a very, very good film becomes a 5-star film. There's sort of other instances that I remember of this happening was Arrival, when, you know, it was a very, very good film, but when it's revealed how the timeline is essentially in a circle, and what you thought had already happened was going to happen in the future. Sorry, spoilers if you haven't seen Arrival yet. and you realize what she has coming to her, and knowing that she can't change that future, is like, that's what made it like an incredible film for me. And then also, I mean, we'll talk about it in a couple of episodes time, I'm sure, but the final scene of the whale was for me again something where everything came together. And I have in the past, I think either on this podcast or the filibuster, sort of said that I don't really cry at movies, and Aftersun, I don't think that I actually cried, but I was really feeling something. But I think, as Chandler Bing in Friends sort of said, it opened a gate. And I know that at the whale, I had to stay in the screen for about 10 minutes. I was sobbing. I was an absolute mess after the end of the whale. And so clearly Aftersun, just something clicked, opened a gate, and now I'm probably going to end up crying at every single movie I see.
So have we got any kind of final thoughts on Aftersun?
I mean, kind of just thinking about what Dallas said, I think that something that Aftersun and The Whale both do is they just have this really great respect for their audience, in that they're not going to kind of exploit the boundaries of what they've already put in place. And I think that that is something that I really like about the direction of this film, is that it's really appreciating memory as a device, and as the fact that we're always just trying to make sense of life through memory, but also about, I don't know, I just think it's a really respectful way to kind of deal with mental health and deal with speaking about issues. And I think that a lot of people will feel a lot of catharsis from watching this film. I
mean, the use of under pressure, it reminded me of another film which features a character who goes through, a moment of existential crisis and stuff like that. That's Grosse Pointe Blank. I remember watching that about 10 years ago, and sort of I'd seen it when it came out in 1997, but then was sort of, I think, affected by it differently when I saw it again in my 30s. And so I guess that was around probably the age that Martin Blanc was in that one, and how he's sort of looking at this baby and sort of, I guess, questioning his life choices and stuff like that. And Under Pressure is the song that's playing in there. And I guess I probably was questioning my life choices and everything I'd done up to that point, and where it was going to go in the future. And I think, this just clearly that song is able to just tap into a very specific part of my soul and affect me more than anything else. And yes, I mean, I think it's a film, and I hope that audiences will come and go out and see it. I think it will, like I said, the universality of, like, everyone who's probably been on a holiday or has experienced something like that. And I think it's, we're at the start of a very strong career for Charlotte Wells, for Frankie Corio, and Paul Mescal's going to go on to do greater things. But it's also the start of another great run for A24. And they're knocking it out of the park, I think, at the moment, in terms of films about strong, dysfunctional father-daughter relationships, clearly.
And we'll be covering them as they keep coming out. So, Billie, you've got a load of things that you're involved in. For people that want to keep up to date with what you're doing over the Annapurnaverse, but equally what you're doing on a wider picture, where would you recommend people check out your work?
They can find me on Twitter at Billie Melissa _. When you say that, I'm like, oh gosh, everything really is coming. But that's because COVID delayed so many things, and now everything's coming at once. So got a film coming out, hopefully in the festival circuit next year, called I Love You Guys. I just watched a first cut of it the other day, which was wonderful, and I can't wait for people to see it. And hopefully one day I'll be back on the A24 podcast, but from the other side.
That would be fantastic. We'd definitely be looking to try and call in a favour to get you back for that one. And Dallas, what are we going to do next? Pearl next week? Do you fancy that?
Yep, I can do that. Although I have breaking news. The Gotham Awards have just released their nominations. and we have breakthrough performer Frankie Corio for Aftersun.
There we go.
And best feature Aftersun, along with
Yay!
Everything Everywhere All at Once and Tar. So clearly the New York critics love Aftersun as much as we do, because it's featured quite heavily there. So yes, it will do quite well on the critic circuit in America as well as in the UK, it seems. So,
Excellent. Well, to play us out,
we've backed a winner.
There we go. Well, to play us out, we have the Gotham-nominated writer-director of Aftersun, the rising star Frankie Corio, and we've got Paul Mescal to kind of talk about their experiences of Aftersun. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week with Pearl. We're joined now by writer-director Charlotte Wells.
Hi there, Charlotte. This film's gone through quite a lot of iterations over the years. How has the film kind of changed and evolved into what we kind of see now?
I mean, yeah, that's a hard question to answer because it's been a long road. It's been about 7 years. I think when I started writing it, it started out something a bit more traditionally structured and fictional, and over the course of making it became more personal, kind of drew more of my own memories and experiences into it, even though it's still very much fiction. I think that's part of the course of kind of writing your first feature, and bringing yourself into it more. And then writing is one stage, production is another, and editing is another. And of course, it's kind of written 3 times over the course of that.
What's it like when you go through such a kind of personal journey to bring something to life after 7 years to then share it with the world and have people respond and react?
Surreal and still very new to it. I think this is only the second time I've presented the film in the world, and this is very different than the first time around. That was very, it had its own set of circumstances, and this is a lot of family, a lot of friends, a lot of people that mean a great deal to me who are responsible for me being here. So I think it's going to be a unique night.
Well, enjoy it. Congratulations.
Congratulations on the film. Obviously, you premiered at Cannes. The only difference between Cannes and the Edinburgh Film Festival is probably the sunshine, but we've got that today. I mean, what does it feel like to bring it home, essentially?
It feels amazing. It's a feeling that's kind of been sneaking up on me more and more over the past couple of weeks leading up to this, thinking about what I might say, standing in front of all of these people that I know who supported me to get to this point. It just feels like such an immense privilege to have been invited to open this film festival where I spent, many hours of my life.
And off the back of Cannes, obviously you've got distributors like Mubi and A24. How does it feel to have people like that buy into your vision, you as a filmmaker, and sort of commit to sharing it with audiences around the world, particularly in cinemas?
Yeah, I mean, it's just very exciting. Those two companies are unbelievably good at what they do, and I think that gives the film the best chance of being seen by people. I think that's all you can really ever ask for when it makes something.
Just one quick question. When did you know it was Paul and Frankie that were going to be in the film?
I mean, literally when? It was, about 18 months ago. When? I think the moment that Paul and I spoke, he just radiated such warmth and passion for the project. And the moment that Frankie first auditioned in the room for us, she's just incredibly special, and that was clear from the outset. And I feel like it couldn't have been anyone else at this point, like they brought so much of themselves to it, their time and their talent. It's nice to share that part of them today.
That's great, thank you. Have a fantastic one.
Thank you so much.
Paul Mescal talks about his reaction to Charlotte Wells' script.
I'm just super proud of the film, and I think it was a no-brainer. I read it and fell in love with it, and I think I probably haven't felt that way about a script since, like that kind of immediate gut response. It was a very kind of unconscious decision, I suppose. Just a brilliant script straight off the bat.
Paul talks about taking on the Edinburgh accent.
I worked with an amazing dialect coach called Maeve Diamond, but I'm slightly nervous about taking the Edinburgh accent into the lines down. But we were working, I can't remember what the man's name that we worked with, but there was a specific voice that Maeve kind of selected that was just somebody, I think it was her cousin or somebody that she got to just kind of record speaking that I just listened to kind of every day when I was filming. I stayed in accent for this, like kind of throughout the shooting process, which is kind of a thing that me and Charlie thought would be useful. Kind of delineate that kind of blend between character and actor, with myself and Frankie working so closely together, which felt would be easier. And also, I've always kind of wanted to do that, and Charlie gave me permission to do it, so it was great.
Paul talks about bonding with fellow actress Frankie Corio.
What's we bonded? We bonded over Nutella crepes and jumping in the pool and swimming in, like, kind of lots of basic holiday antics. Like, so Frankie's parents were very kind in terms of inviting me into kind of take a certain amount of responsibility around rehearsal and kind of building trust, and it was just kind of incidental things like going for walks, swimming in the pool, just spending time with each other.
Paul talks about male characters and their sadness in that increasing trend.
I don't know, I can only speak from my own kind of personal relationship to the work that I make, and I feel like male characters are being given an opportunity to express a kind of more quiet sadness, which I feel is more, it's just more relatable to me, and I feel like it's more relatable to the young men that I know in the world. It's not kind of a men's trauma, it's kind of a quieter terror or something. Yeah, I don't know what it says about me, but I enjoy working in that wheelhouse.
We're now joined by Gotham Rising Star nominee Frankie Corio, who talks with me in Dallas.
Frankie, I saw you signing autographs downstairs.
Were you signing autographs?
Yeah. And it seems like you're continuing the role of the sort of protective father. I saw you, shepherding onto the red carpet, make sure she's okay. I mean, how did the two of you sort of develop your relationship for the film? Was it all there in the script, or did you workshop it together, or?
We didn't do a lot of script work. We just kind of hung out. Frankie's a very easy person to like, and I enjoyed her company from day one. Pretty easy, right?
Yeah.
And Charlotte's vision, was it an easy buy-in to sort of, from reading the script, to say, yes, I want to be a part of this?
Yeah, it was first reading the script day one. I was like, I really want to see this. How do we make this happen? What about you?
I didn't get to see the script.
Yeah, that's true.
You didn't get to see the script, so you just went in blind, not knowing what.
Wow.
Terrible.
And was there a story from your time together where you thought, oh, this could have been in the film, this could have been part of our relationship working abroad together?
Oh, watching the European Championships were on. I remember hanging out with your dad and you going for dinner kind of early on in the first kind of 2 weeks when we were together. And because I was over there by myself, so Frankie's dad and Frankie kind of took me in, and it was very kind of him.
Excellent. And any nerves yourself, obviously going into an Edinburgh screening with the accent? Now, I've got it on very good authority from a couple of people, including Robbie Collins, who says you apparently have nailed this very specific Edinburgh accent. So.
I'm nervous. I'm bringing the accent into the lion's den, but I'm proud of the work that I did on it. I've worked with a great dialogue coach, so fingers crossed it holds up in Edinburgh. So
I'm sure. We're a very forgiving nation.
Yeah. Just be nice to me.
And for yourself, as the first time actress, what was kind of Charlotte like as a director with you?
She was fantastic. She's very patient.
Yeah.
And most times her being patient helped me a lot, obviously, because I did not have experience, but she's a great director, and
And you've got an actress as well that also plays an older version of you. Did you two work together to sort of make sure it matched up, or did you both have sort of your own independence to kind of?
I don't know. We didn't really get to see each other a lot. It was more the ending.
Yeah.
She came in, got to say hi, and then we had to do it. But that was all.
Perfect. Well, good luck tonight and congratulations.